Welcome to the Flying Trout podcast. My name is Braden Evans, and today we're going to dive into something just a little different. We're diving into the mono rig. All right, so the tight line advantage. So you might see I've got some lines and things. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of this new avenue of fishing. I feel like mono rig is kind of the hot thing in the industry right now, and a lot of people are talking about it. And I'm going to be honest, I was not bought into the mono rig for a long time, and eventually, read about it so much, heard about it on all these podcasts and all these videos I listened to. And so finally, I was just like, man, I want to know what the heck this whole thing is about. So I tried it out, started tying my own leaders and all these sorts of things, and fell in love with the whole mono rig type system. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why. We're going to talk about, how to tie them, pros, cons, all these different things, because I know it's totally new to a lot of people. So my big, ask for you guys this week is just be open-minded. Like I said, it was something that I was not bought into initially for sure. And so I totally get it if you're coming in, you're like, man, just let me fish with my fly line and have a good time. And hey, I'm totally with you. But I think there are a lot of really good advantages to using these mono rig type setups. And so I think it's, even if you don't want to switch your entire fishing over to it, I think it's something good to have in your pocket, or at least just to be thinking a little bit about, because it's going to get you, make you more versatile angler, those sorts of things. So this week's article is called The Tight Line Advantage. I wrote it a few months ago after, I started tying these and started playing with them and started realizing how effective this system can be. So I'm going to read that, and then we're going to dive more into, the actual subject matter of all of this. So yeah, let's get after it. So like I said, this week, the article is called The Tight Line Advantage. All right, here we go. I settled on fly fishing because of some inherent advantages over gear tackle that I really valued and enjoyed. This all started with fly line. The ability to cast fly line and meet fish on their terms was different than what I had experienced with spin tackle or bait casting. I love the feeling of casting a fly line, and I truly think it allows an angler to present the fly in a more natural way and provides access to a different sense of versatility, which only leads to more fish in the net. However, recently, fly line, or rather leaders, have seemed to limit my experience on the water. Despite good casting fundamentals, I felt the flimsy nature of store-bought leaders was leading to less strike detection, reduced accuracy, and limited what I could do on the water. As I read and listened to many sources in the fly fishing community, I kept hearing about this mono rig system. Essentially, this system uses a very long leader, 30 feet or more, but it is tied with thicker material that is usually used in fly fishing leaders. The result is a system that casts like a fly line, but gives you the added benefits of better strike detection, more accuracy, and more versatility. I don't know about you, but that sounds a little too good to be true, but I decided to give it a shot. In my first day of fishing with this new system, the advantages became very clear very quickly. I started the day with nymphing as I usually do. My long leader ended at a tippet ring that would easily attach some 5X tippet to. I secured 2 flies to the system and laid my first cast. I was instantly shocked by the turnover I could still get through the cast, and after a few, I was easily tucking the fly exactly where I wanted it to be. The leader was long enough, my fly line could stay completely inside the reel. My line hand was holding on to monofilament. At first this felt weird, but as my flies drifted through a seam, I could feel everything that was going on with that fly. I could feel it drop into the water column. I could feel it tick the bottom, and when a fish took the fly, the feedback was instant, even with extremely subtle takes. I was shocked with how much feedback I was getting. The morning progressed, and soon I started seeing subtle eats on the surface of the water. The trout were eating small midges and hatching off the smooth sections of water. I quickly snipped off my nips and tied on a small midge dry fly. I was nervous for how well the system would present small drive flies. It didn't seem like it would have enough power to truly push that fly out where I would need it, and my first cast wasn't quite what I wanted. But after making a few adjustments and focusing on good, solid casting fundamentals, my fly was able to get out just as far as if I had used my weighted fly line. I also noticed significantly less drag than what I expected from a fly line. When using dries, I typically mend my fly line more than a few times as the fly drifts through the seam or pool. That simply wasn't needed in this case. The light line stayed in contact with the fly, and I could easily pick up the line, leaving the dry fly completely untouched to adjust the line as needed. I picked up a few fish on those dries, and the action started to slow. Finally, I tied on a streamer to round out the end of my day and cast towards an undercut cliff. I thought the system would do well with streamers because they require less delicate casts. Casting was easy, but what I did not expect was how much control I would have over the fly. I was able to control the streamer in ways I was not used to. I could flip the head of the fly, change direction, raise or lower the fly in the column. Overall, I had more control over the system than I had expected, and as a result, I was able to finish my day with a few more fish on those streamers. As I drove home that day, twisting and turning through a winding mountain road, I reflected on how much I was able to accomplish with high-level presentations. In a typical day, a fly angler has a few choices to make. They can either commit to one style, nymphs, dries, or streamers, or they can switch leader and tippet material throughout the day to match the situation. I typically find myself in this camp. Or they can retain the same line for each type and deal with the disadvantages of that line's size and type, nylon or fluoro, for example. None of these options is great, but we are forced to make these decisions to be effective on the water. I've always leaned towards efficiency, and this system offered me a new landscape of efficiency. By simply clipping off some tippet at a tippet ring, I was able to switch to completely different methods of fishing and give excellent presentations in each. In the next few paragraphs, I will outline this system, how I tied it up, and how you can use it. This will be a very entry-level introduction to the tightline system. Hopefully in future articles, we'll explore the future specifics of this system and methods. So this is all about the build. One of the first advantages of this system is that you are essentially buying monofilament line in bulk and tying sizes together. A quick investment in a few 300-yard spools easily gives you enough supply for a large amount of leaders. There is a ton of information and opinions on what materials and brands to use specifically. As a beginner tightline guy, I truly don't have enough experience to speak on those materials, so I will simply outline what I used after researching for a few days and what worked for me. We'll dive a little bit more into this in the discussion. I've kind of tried some different lines and different things, and I think I've got a pretty good grasp now. The system is built of a butt section connected to your fly line, a body section meant to build in taper and transfer power. The body is connected to a tippet ring, which then leads to a tippet section. The wonderful thing about this system is as you practice and play with it, you can adjust it to your needs and wants out of your fishing. The butt section. The butt section is made out of 20 feet of 20-pound monofilament. In my leaders, I use Berkeley Trilene Extra Tough. Color doesn't really matter, but I used a low-vis green, figuring it would stand out the least. If I was targeting spooky fish, a lot of people are partial to Amnesia line. I haven't used it yet. The store is out of it at the time I am impatient. But many people swear by the 20-pound version of this line and say it is the best butt section material for self-tied leaders. I tie a 20-foot section of 20-pound mono into a simple perfection loop, which I can easily attach to my fly line with a loop-to-loop connection. This only adds to the versatility of the system. If I want to switch to a shorter leader, I simply disconnect the loop connection and reconnect with a different leader. This adds versatility to the system. The other key here is power. This is the portion of leader that we will be casting, so we want plenty of power built into the system so we can get good turnover even with the smallest flies. Body section. This is where we will build the transfer of power. To do this, we tie in some taper by reducing the size of line, in this case in 3 increments. For all of these sections throughout the body, I used Suffix monofilament. First, I tied 3 feet of 14-pound mono directly to my butt section using a double surgeon's knot. I liked the low-vis green, but any color would be fine here. Then I would follow this with 2 feet of 12-pound mono. I used the high-vis yellow color to build in some siding and make the line easier to track. Finishing the body, I used 1 foot of 10-pound mono in the neon tangerine. This is the last section and is tied off to a tippet ring that will lead to the tippet section. There are a few things I really liked with the way I built this section. First, the taper in the size and the length of each of those sections helped build in taper, which provided better turnover than when I tried the same formula using them all with 2-foot sections through the taper. Second, the color of the line through the last 2 sections helps build in a cider that is easy to see and track where the line is wherever we are in contact, or letting the line float on the surface of the water. Tippet section. The tippet section is where I can customize a presentation for what I am pursuing in that moment. The tippet ring makes it easier to switch between tippet sizes and materials. For example, if I'm fishing nymphs, I like fluorocarbon, but when dry flies start popping off the surface, I can easily snip the tippet and add a nylon to the tippet ring for better floating. This section begins with a tippet ring. I like the smallest possible because I want it to be as light as possible. That way, when I'm in touch with the fly, I can get as little sag in the line as possible. I simply use a clinch knot to secure the body section to the ring, then I use the same knot to secure the tippet. The beauty of this design is that it is completely customizable to the fly you are using. I like to use fluorocarbon for nymphs and streamers, but I use nylon for dry fly presentation because it floats better. The tippet ring connection makes switching between these seamless. I can even keep flies rigged to tippet, so when I want to make a switch, all I have to do is tie that tippet section back onto the tippet ring with that clinch knob, and I'm off. This works really well on full days on the water, where I can switch between nymphs, dries, and streamers throughout the day. This way I can meet trout on their terms and always have the best presentations possible. Below, I will outline my go-to combination for tippet for each fly type. So for dries, I go tippet ring, and then I'll do about 12 inches of this 2X nylon, and then 12 inches of 4X nylon straight to the fly. Gets you a little bit more taper. For nymphs, I'll go tippet ring to 12 inches of this 2X bicolor fluoro that Rio makes. It's really, really nice. Gets you a little bit extra cider. And then typically I'll do 4X or 6X, just depending on the size of the fly. And then streamers, going tippet ring to 2X fluoro, and then if the situation calls for it, I might do a little bit more taper with 3X fluoro as well. Bringing it all together. The greatest advantage of fly fishing is versatility. And more often than not, it is the versatile angler who wins the day. We have to be prepared for all situations on the water, and we have to be able to meet fish on their terms. Otherwise, we might as well use gear tackle, throw power bait as far as we can, and wait for what happens. I'm sure our lives would be a lot easier, but I don't want it easy. I want to put fish in the net. If you're still sitting here reading this and thinking to yourself, Jesus, do we really have to make fishing more complicated? Believe me, I get it. When I first heard of the monorig system, I scoffed too, thinking I will take my fly line over self-tied leaders any day. But eventually, curiosity got the best of me, and the results spoke for themselves. The versatility, customization, and ability to change quickly and efficiently are unmatched by anything else I have seen in fly fishing, except maybe switching from rod to rod, but carrying 3 rods is filled with hardship and compromise as well. I would urge you to give it a shot. Just give it one chance. But it has to be a fair chance. Tie a leader, take it out for a whole day. If you like fly line more, great. The beauty of this system is you can switch back and forth from mono to fly line whenever you want. I don't think anything will truly replace fly line in my heart. I still love and cherish the feel of casting fly lines and pushing my line across the water. However, when it comes time to meet trout on their terms, to pick a stream apart and find every corner the fish are hiding, my hand will reach for the monorig, where I will find the tight line advantage. With this tool, you can switch in and out of contact. You can drift dries, you can high stick nymphs, and you can strip streamers, all within minutes of each other. This is the meaning of true versatility. finding and meeting trout on their terms, and presenting whatever food source they may be keen in on, switching with speed and casting with accuracy, true efficiency, ultimate versatility, and more time catching fish. That is the tightline advantage. I hope this article helps introduce you to the world of the mono rig. As always, if you have questions, new ideas, please leave a comment, send an email. Your input is always welcome. Below, you will find the basic formula I have used for my mono rig. Use it or make it your own, and let me know what you think. So this build, just kind of put it all together. At this time was 20 feet of 20-pound mono in low vis green. So that was this guy right here, this tri-line. And then 3 feet of low fit green Suffix Elite. So that's this guy here in 14-pound. Then it was 2 feet of 12-pound mono in this high vis color. This was really, really nice. Gives you a nice cider. And then it was 1 foot of 10-pound in the neon tangerine. That goes to a tippet ring, that goes to a tippet section, and then to your fly. All right, that was this week's article. Obviously, it's long, it's convoluted, there's lots of builds, lots of different things. So, great things for us to talk about, okay? But first, I want to kind of dissect the advantages, disadvantages, and kind of the arguments against the tight line system, if you will, because I think that's kind of a good conversation to have. So first up, advantages. We talked about this a little bit in the actual article, but I think one of the biggest advantages to using a system like this is versatility. When I switched over to this, I was getting really picky with my presentations, and so I wasn't happy with using, a fluorocarbon leader for dry flies because I was getting a little bit more sink, and so I wanted something that would float, and so I was switching leaders when I was switching from, flies to nymphs to streamers and all this sort of stuff, and that was just, for me, it was taking more time. I was taking more time to do this, and it's just not as versatile to me. In this system, because it's going to a tippet ring, for me, it's been just extremely easy to be able to switch between, nylon tippet or fluorocarbon tippet, thick tippet to thin tippet. And it's been really nice because my switches are so much quicker. So when the action is going off, I can just, boom, switch between another style, another, material. And that's been huge for me. And it's definitely led me to catching more fish. No comparison, absolutely catching more fish with this system. I think another huge advantage to this is strike detection, right? One of the biggest things with this is instead of, feeling that fly line where you've got that, loop to loop connection typically to your leader, and you're, feeling this thick line, there's not a ton of sensitivity built into that. And so really you're either relying on seeing your, indicator go under or seeing them come up and eat that dry. But sometimes, especially in the streams I fish, I've noticed that some of these takes are so subtle that even if you're using an indicator, you have to feel it. You could see that indicator go under, and by the time that you see it, your chance is already gone, and you can't get that good hook set. And so being able to feel it just makes it so much better. And so when you have your hands on that actual mono, and it's all connected through there, now I've been using blood knots to connect those, which is even just, I think, better strike detection, that it's almost seamless between the lines. And that's just been huge in my strike detection. I can feel that strike in the mono, and I don't have to rely on indicators or anything like that anymore. And I can just feel that right there. And I've been able to put a lot of fish in the net. Even really small fish when I've been doing blue line fishing and things like that, just way up in the mountains, I've been able to put a lot more fish in the net because I can feel those strikes, which is awesome. I also think accuracy compared to other leaders is just way better. And this kind of comes with you using it in your own style and testing some different things out. But where I started with where this article kind of outlines the system that I did, I've changed some things since then with it. And I feel like my accuracy is even better because I've modified it to fit my cast a little bit. And so my accuracy has been really, really nice. You're not limited into this store-bought leader that some company made, which hey, I'm not bashing those companies. A lot of them make very, very good leaders. I'm just saying that, it's kind of like a tailored suit jacket compared to an off the rack suit jacket. If you get off the rack and it's kind of, whatever, and it'll fit you okay and you'll look pretty good. But then when you compare that to, a suit that's made for you, I mean, man, it feels better, it looks better, all these things. And I think the same is true for, self-tied leaders. When you really customize it to yourself, it just fits your casting style and your preferences and your rod type so much better. So I think that's really cool. I also one of the biggest advantages I think is reduced drag. Just being able to be in touch with. I've even been in touch with dry flies, so I'll lay that dry fly on the water and then I'll pick that line up and just barely leave it out of touch. So then there's no drag whatsoever. And like we've talked about before, right? Drag free drift is the goal. If you can have a drag free drift and make it look as real as possible, you're gonna have so much more luck on the water. And so I think being able to do that with, nymphs, dries, whatever it is, and be in touch, or if, it's windy and that line's getting blown around, I've also laid that mono on the river and it's been, floating by, and that gives me really good. And so you just have multiple options, right? Fly line's too heavy. If you lay, if you try to be in touch with fly line, it's going to sag and it's going to drag that fly along. But with this mono rig, it's so light that you can go in and out of touch and you can stay really connected with that fly. And I think it just really gives you really nice reduced drag, and it makes those presentations just so much easier, which is the name of the game. Last thing, I think advantages is just efficiency, right? From an efficiency standpoint, being able to clip things off and change things and do all this to the tippet ring, I think it just is way more efficient than anything else I've experienced in fly fishing. So it makes it really, really nice. All right. Now, what about arguments, right? Arguments against the fly or against a mono rig, because there always are some, right? So we're going to dive into some of those. One of the first ones, right, and you hear this all the time, is it's not real fly fishing, right? Some purists believe it's too far away from traditional fly line presentations, and it's not real fly fishing anymore. And here's my argument to that: is who cares? Who cares what other people think about if it's real fly fishing or not? I would argue that it totally is, because you're still using a fly rod, you're still using the fly reel, and we're still casting it like a fly line, right? I don't think the line is what matters. I think it's the presentation style, and it's presenting flies in a manner that trout are going to eat, right? I think in this system, we want it to present well. And if fly line is limiting you from doing that, then it doesn't matter if, it's fly fishing or not. What I care about is I care about catching fish, and I care about getting out there. And this system has helped me do that more and do that better, right? And so I don't think we should get bogged down as, is it real fly fishing or not? You're still using a fly rod, you're still using a fly reel, and you're still presenting it like a fly line. So for me, it's really, why are we making this distinction just based off of the type of line? We're still casting to the same, we're still doing all these things, but we're getting better presentations. So I think, is it real fly fishing? Yes, I do. I think it's absolutely real fly fishing, and I think that's just a silly argument that doesn't really need to be, talked about. We all want to catch more fish, and so let's work out systems that make us do that better. The other thing that people really get concerned about is casting distance, right? Because I'll be honest, casting fly line will push the fly line out there further, right? If you're swinging wet flies and that sort of stuff, then the mono rig is not for that. And I still think there's times when we want to use a fly line, and if we're trying to cast really, really, really far and get after those fish that are really far away and we just can't wait out there, absolutely, fly line is going to be the name of the game there. But my argument would be that most fish aren't caught with very long casts, right? In my experience, what I've seen with, when I try to, I've definitely been there where I'm like, oh man, I'm so good at casting and I want to cast this line all the way out there. And I've sat there and I casted, and I've gotten these really long drifts, and I've casted super, super far and, tried to do that. I don't know if I have ever caught a fish when I went with a fly cast that was, 40, 50, 60 feet. I don't know if I've ever done it. Ever. They look really pretty. The cast looks awesome. Looks really great on, social media or whatever. If you want to post a video you casting super super far, I think that's awesome. But I think with those super long casts, it also gives a lot of area where your drift is just not going to be as good, right? And you can't. I don't care how good at mending you are, you're not going to be able to mend super efficiently 50 feet of fly line laying out on the water. It's just not going to happen. And so I think when we're really, trying to catch fish, when we're really trying to get in there and catch them, I think our sweet spot is, anywhere from 15 to 30 feet. And that's kind of what we're looking at. And this system casts so well between 15 and 30 feet. And it's going to give you a better presentation. You're going to be able to be tight line, and you're going to be able to just catch more fish. Absolutely. I think, is there a little bit of concern with, less casting distance? Absolutely. You're not going to be able to cast as far with this. You're not going to be able to get, 40 foot, 50 foot, 60 foot casts 100%. You're just not going to do it. But in the actual area where you're going to be catching fish consistently, at least in most streams, then it's just going to be better for you, right? There's no need that we need to cast that far out and then be fighting the fish for that, 50 feet of fly line or whatever. This system is just going to give you a little bit better, better versatility inside of that 15 to 30 feet area. That's really the sweet spot. Another thing people really worry about is dry fly limitations with really presenting these small, delicate dry flies. And I think really that comes down to what your leader system looks like. If you're using, a system that has, if you're going too small, like you're starting with a 14 pound or something like that, then yeah, you're probably not going to have the power to get those dry flies, really turned over and get them out there nice. But there's a lot of these systems, and you just have to try some different things out, and you'll find these really nice dry fly presentations with some different of these line types that we'll get into here in just a little bit. That's going to be really good. The other thing that people worry about is line handling, right? What does that mono rig feel like in your hand? Because fly line is nice and thick, and I mean, we're going down to mono that's super super thin, and so what does that look like? And I think that is absolutely fair. It took me a little bit to get used to the mono feel in the actual handling of my line, but I think that's something that's come down with testing these fly lines. Is I've now switched with my butt section is this 25 pound Maxima Chameleon. And this stuff is pretty thick and feels actually really good in the hand. It's not quite like fly line, right? It's not that thick. But as you practice and as you get used to it, you're able to feel that in there. And so whether you're stripping or, you've got your little trigger finger trying to set hooks or anything, you get used to it. But I think that when you start, it is going to feel a little bit different. So just be prepared for that. But just practice with a little bit, try out some different butt sections, and eventually you'll find one that you really, really like. So. All right. So that's, advantages, disadvantages, arguments against, all this good stuff. So now what I really want to do is I really want to dig into the gear and everything that you need, and kind of this, I talked my initial kind of formula and everything in the actual podcast, or in the article, I mean. But now I really want to talk about, where I've settled, because I've been trying a few different things out, and things that'll just give you a few tips and everything if you're wanting to try this mono rig type thing out, right? So first off, gear you need, right? Do you need a new rod? No, you do not need a new rod. A lot of people, want to have some fancy rod or whatever for their mono rig setup, and I think that's great if you're fully bought in. But your 9 foot 5 weight, your 6 weight, your 4 weight, whatever you're using, you can use it. Now for me, I'm using a Sage 9 foot 4 weight rod. I absolutely love a 4 weight rod. Super fun to fight fish on, super fun, but still enough power to really get them in there. And you get this really nice, delicate rod that's able to present dry flies and all sorts of things really well. So if you have a 4 weight, that's what I'd go with, but don't go out and buy a new rod. Make it work with your 5 weights. Lots of people do, okay? The other thing that I think you should absolutely get, and this is about a $4 investment, that is not a big deal, is Loon makes these foam rigging spools that are really nice. And so what I do with these is these go straight in my vest. I tie a couple different versions of leaders, especially as I'm trying things out and researching some different things. And I'll tie a few of these different leaders, and I'll spool them around these foam rigging spools. And then I get a little elastic hair tie. I just steal them from my wife, to be honest with you. She's probably getting annoyed because she's like, "Where the heck are all my all my hair ties?" Because I've been tying a ton of leaders recently. Um, and I'll put them straight on there, wrap them up, and then put the hair tie over it, and it keeps it nice and put in there. And then I've been labeling these too with, I've got a little notebook and I keep all my little formulas and everything together, and I'll label them, and then I just test some different things out. So if you're wanting to try a few different formulas, get some of these loon rigging spools. I also just think they're super nice because if you have, a couple different, some people are doing like a dry fly leader, nymph leader, and all that, and you can just connect them with a loop to loop connection to your fly line. And then people are taking those off of there and then spooling them around these and keeping the flies on there and just stab them right in there. And then your leader is just ready to go. You don't even have to tie knots. And I think that's a super cool way to use these as well. So, $4. Get some loon rigging spools. These come in like a pack of 3. You can get them at basically every fly shop that I've been to. And I think these would do really, really well for you and just making it a little bit easier. Now let's dig into actual lines, right? I've got a bunch of lines here on the table if you're watching on video. Otherwise, I'll just try to describe them a little bit if you're watching on Spotify or whatever. Sorry, I'm real thirsty today. So, I started my mono rig experience using 20-pound trilene from Berkeley. This is extra tough. And this was a good butt section. I really liked it, but one thing, this line is pretty thin, and I didn't really love the hand feel of it. It kind of, has a lot of memory, and so as it is on that reel, it kind of twists up, and so when I was actually trying to handle it, it didn't feel super great in my hand. And so this is a good, like, introductory maybe butt section. It's cheap. You can buy it pretty much anywhere. I got this one at Shields along with a lot of my other lines here. And this was super easy to just get after and tie it on there. But I wasn't super happy with it. And so I wanted to try some different things and just see. And I heard a lot about this Sunset Amnesia line, and wanted to try that out. It's a little bit thicker, and it's got a little bit more power in it. This is the 25-pound because I really wanted that nice power in there. And I tried this. I'm going to be honest, I didn't love this line. There's a ton of people in the mono rig community that absolutely love this line. I think it'd be great in like a 12-pound or something like that for, that taper section. But for me, for the butt section, it tangled a lot, right? And so I was dealing a lot with tangling and untangling this line, and that's just not what I wanted. I was wasting a lot of time with this. So this one is out for me for a butt section. So a lot of people will swear by it for that taper section, and I would maybe try it for that. Maybe I'll get a 12-pound version or something and give Amnesia another shot. But I didn't love it for my butt section. Then I found Maxima Chameleon. All right, Maxima Chameleon is my absolute favorite line for the butt section. This stuff is incredible. It probably feels the most like a fly line. It probably casts the most like a fly line. I've been using the 25-pound version. I've also got the 20-pound version that I'm going to try a little bit lighter of a setup with. So we're going to try that out too. But I've been using 25-pound Maxima Chameleon line, and this has just been awesome. And so what I start with is I do 24 feet of this Maxima Chameleon line as my butt section, and I just tie a really simple, either a perfection loop or just something like that, real simple loop there at the end of it, and then I can just loop to loop it with my fly line, and it's super easy, right? So 24 feet of this stuff, feels great, casts great, it's super supple. It feels good in the hand. It doesn't tangle a lot. And so when I'm stripping streamers or trying to, handle my fly line, this has been my absolute favorite one. So Maxima Chameleon, absolutely try this one first. I think you'll really, really like it. So starting with Maxima Chameleon is the butt section. Then I've changed a little bit in my, other sections as well. I was using, 3 feet and then 2 feet and then 1 foot and kind of building this taper in there. And I really liked that at first, but as I kind of got in there, what I realized was that, with 3 feet, the 2 feet of the green and then the orange, it was just a little too long, because each of those are connected with knots. And so, with 6 feet of that, it was just a little too long, especially for like small mountain streams. I was, casting in these situations. Then I was trying to reel up, and those knots were actually getting stuck in my eyelets, and so I didn't like that as much. And so what I switched to was I switched to doing 12 inches of each. Okay, so I've got 12 inches of 14-pound mono, 12 inches of 12-pound mono, and then 12 inches of 10-pound mono. And what that does is first it helps build in a little bit of cider, because you can see I've got these in 3 different colors. And so I can see, if I'm in touch with that fly and I want to get it a little deeper, I can get it a little deeper. Or it just helps me see where that line is, and I can see, twitches or anything like that if I need to. But that's been really good. And so I go from a 25-pound Maxima Chameleon. Then I go to 14-pound Suffix Elite. I really, really like this line for the taper. It's super thin, supple, casts great. This has been really good, and it comes in these huge spools. So I've been tying a ton of leaders. I'm going to be honest. I've become a huge nerd. I sit in my freaking office and I tie all these leaders, and it's kind of crazy, but I've been tying a ton, and there's still a ton left. So these are really good investment. They're not expensive. So I go 14-pound, and then I go with the 12-pound. I like this in this high vis yellow color, because it really helps build in that cider a little bit. And then I switch that to a 10-pound tangerine. That's also just really, really nice to see out on the water. So that's kind of the whole, every bit of line that I use. I then tie that to a tippet ring, and that can go into your actual tippet sections. The knots that I actually use for all of these, this is where it's going to be, a little bit tricky. So I use perfection loop to get the butt section to the fly line. And then between all of these sections, I started off using a double surgeon's knots, just kind of a classic, joins lines together, and it worked well. But like I said, with the lengths of these lines, is those knots were really getting stuck in my eyelets, and that was really driving me crazy. As I was trying to reel fish in, especially as I was getting bigger fish, I really wanted to reel these in, but it just wasn't quite there for me, and it was getting stuck in these eyelets. And so started researching some different knots, and I think the one that everybody should try is the blood knots. It is not a hard knot to tie. It's a little trickier than a double surgeon's, but it's in the same vein. It's not super hard. Maybe takes a little bit more time, but the knot connection on that it's almost seamless. It is just a crazy good knot. It's super strong. That connection is seamless. And like this weekend, I was fishing, and I was reeling in past those knots, and they would just come straight through the eyelets. I didn't get caught a single time. Wasn't a problem. And so I think that's the knot for you guys to use. Okay. So perfection loop from butt section to your fly line. And then between all of these lines, as you go taper down, you're going to go a blood knot. Then from the tangerine 10-pound section, I just do a clinch knot straight to a tippet ring. And then from there, I can tie on my, I can tie on all my tippets and go straight to my flies, whatever size. That doesn't really change from like leader style or whatever. And that's worked out for me super, super, super well. Okay. So I know it's a lot of information with the mono rig, but I seriously want you guys to try it. I think it's made me a way more versatile angler. It's been a lot of fun to play with these and try out some different things. And it's just, another thing for me to kind of nerd out about. Now I'm looking at different lines and looking at how thick they are or how supple they are. I'll sit around my house and cast these little leaders and all that sort of stuff. And it's been super fun to just tie. So I want you guys to try it out. I want you to let me know what you think. And if you've already been, fishing with the mono rig, I'd love to hear, different line opinions and different formulas and everything, because I think this is something I'm going to keep trying out and keep trying different formulas. So keep looking out on Flying Trout for different formulas and all that sort of stuff. And if you guys be interested in a tutorial for how to tie these, I'd love to do that too. So let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. But for now, that is episode 8. That's episode 8 of the Flying Trout podcast. Um, and I really just want to, you know, touch base on this and just talk about, how cool this has been for me from a versatility standpoint. This new leader system I've been trying out for about the past year, and it's really just changed the game for me. So try it out, fully commit to it, give it a couple days of fishing. If you don't like it, that's fine. Switch back to fly line. Let us know that we're, silly and we should stop obsessing all our time on different leader materials. But if it works for you, I mean, embrace it. Try out some different things. Try these lines. Try some different lines. And I'd love to hear what works for you guys. So that's it. So thank you guys for listening. This has been an absolute blast for me to talk about. Let us know what you think. Give us a follow. Give us a comment on Spotify, on YouTube, because those things really, really help us just grow this platform and grow this program. And we will see you in the next one for episode 9. See you out there.